thank you all for being here. I'm Ted Ciccone. I'm the the project manager for ArtLink, and we also have Z Peralta with ArtLink. She's our media manager. Thank you so much for being here, and welcome to the Photograph Your Art workshop. This is our second session of the Photograph Your Art workshop in a series of workshops we're going to be doing all about artist resources and providing resources to artists. And we've done this in partnership with the City of Phoenix Office of Arts and Culture, so we definitely want to thank them as well for all their support in this program. So before I introduce our workshop instructor, I just wanted to cover a couple things here about the Mood Room. So the Mood Room is our gallery space, ArtLink's gallery space. Our ArtLink offices are just next door. And you're all getting a sneak preview of a great show. This is Social Vacancy, a solo show by Michael Viguletta. And that's going to be opening next Thursday at 6 to 9. So you're all welcome to come back and enjoy the opening, and I hope you do. And we're going to be doing monthly shows in here. And so if anybody wants to volunteer, we'd love some gallery host volunteers. And so we have a little sign-up sheet back here if you're interested in finding out more about that. Just drop me your email, and I'll send you an email about potential dates and the details of being a volunteer. So we appreciate your help there. Let's see, we have bottled water over here. Help yourself to that. And restrooms are in the back corner through this door. Take a left, and that's where you find the restrooms. Let's see, what else? And we have Godfrey doing our video. We appreciate his help today. And let's see, did I forget anything? Oh, how many participants do we have today that are current ArtLink participants? Great, we'd like to see that, about half of you. If you're not an participant and you want to learn about what that's all about and the many benefits of being a participant, check out artlinkphx.org and you'll find out about the benefits. We have free sign up there for participant as well as paid levels. So everybody's welcome to become an participant. We'd love to have you. Let's see, we covered that, and I guess on to our workshop. So please help me welcome a wonderful local artist and fabulous photographer, Nader.
Hey everybody, I'm Nader Abashab, local photographer. I've been full-time doing that for about 9 years, and yeah, it's totally my passion. And yeah, I'm happy to share some knowledge with you guys today. The best way that I work in a situation like this is if you guys have questions. The interaction is definitely good for me because I like to answer questions on the fly, and that's how I learned best when I'm actually seeing the equipment, seeing whatever, asking the question on the spot definitely helps me. So please feel free to ask questions as we go. The first part that I'm going to kind of go over is more on the if you have an actual camera, and then I will also go over like if you have your cell phone and you want to just know how to just take some clean images with that as well. Right now I have like just a tethered setup. You do not need this much of an elaborate setup. Obviously I'm doing this for demonstration purposes, and this is actually how I would have a setup started for a client who needed art reproduction. So I'll actually go over kind of art reproduction if you're just gonna make prints of your work, and then also if you're just trying to do more of like a gallery style, like cool shot, I will show you a little bit more dramatic lighting for that. All right. So, again, a couple of the tools I would definitely recommend having is a camera that you can do any sort of manual settings with. Make sure that you can have full control of your camera. And a tripod. Tripod probably being one of the biggest things. More important than the kind of lights you have, a tripod will help you stabilize your image, make sure it's nice and sharp, and if you have minimal light, you can take a long exposure and still get a clean image. Yeah. How many people have cameras with full control manual settings? Okay, and then everyone else I'm guessing is going to be using cell phones? Very cool. No, that's totally fine. Little small cameras, as long as you can just control it manually, that's all you need to know. So I'll go over the concepts just like that. So I'm going to just start by picking one of these pieces and just kind of getting the lighting going. And as I go, I'll just kind of walk you through. So we got this nice kind of matte piece right here. This is like a perfect, to me, this would be like the perfect piece of art. Just be like, okay, I'm not going to run into too many problems. We'll get into texture and glass and glossiness, but this is what we'll start with, nice and easy. All right. And I got 2 soft boxes here because I wanted to distribute even light. And bigger the light source, the softer the light will be. So I'm basically using these as 2 windows. So what I want to do is, again, kind of distribute them evenly. I have them set on the same, my trigger set on each of these on the same settings, so they're going to distribute the same amount of light. Just a matter of me putting them in the right spot. And again, this is like how I would start if you were a client bringing art in and I just needed to light it and shoot it. All right. And start with that. See where we're at with settings. Not too bad. I'm going to come off a little bit. You can kind of start to see the shadows and the edges there. I want to get rid of those. If you're doing reproduction and you have enough resolution, you're going to come in anyway, so it's not as big of a deal. But I just want to show you a clean image. I'm going to bump this up too. I'm probably in the way of this. Get to see a silhouette of my butt. It's looking better. Almost there. Oh, actually, I know what that's from. Can we kill the overheads?
The gentleman just suggested that.
And you guys will see this better too. All right, there you go. So I'm already kind of dialed in on settings, but I'm going to show you if I was making a mistake on this. Let's just go crazy. And I'll go over white balance later, but you'll see once you have full control over your camera, how you can dial all this stuff in. Any questions so far? We're all good? Okay. We're all pros in here. It was funny, after the last workshop, I totally had people come up like, so how much would you charge? I'm like, I just taught you how to do it.
I was just going to say, could we just line up with our
Right?
It's like, yeah, could you just photograph this?
Go figure, right? Okay, so that's, again, looking pretty good. Again, if I was going to do this for reproduction, I would probably come in a little bit tighter with the crop in camera, but then, obviously, since it's a square, we'll just kind of, do something like, wait 1 second. Got to change my settings. Let's change that to square. And that's how you would clean it up. So then you'd have a nice clean image for reproduction, and you're good to go. One thing I will say, people who have control over your settings, you have 3 things to worry about with your camera. You have aperture, your f-stop. You have ISO, which is your sensitivity, and your shutter speed. If you're using strobes, you have to worry about sync speed, but generally speaking, if you have your tripod, shutter speed, I think I would worry about last, but worry about your aperture and your ISO. So with those 2 things, you want to stop down to if your lens is like an f2.8 or an f3.5 or an f5.6. Again, I know not everyone's going to vibe with those numbers, but please ask questions. You just want to basically stop down to a higher number, not crazy high, but in between, around 8 to 11. That'll make everything sharp in your camera. And then from there, ISO is how sensitive your sensor is. When you bump that up, you start to lose quality, so you want to keep that low. So that's why I would say use your shutter speed in a tripod to get the exposure you need. Let's see. Yeah, please.
The ISO, so not is that like relatable to like an 800 speed film or something?
Yes, it's basically your ASA.
Okay, so not an 800, so not a high speed, like a mid range, like a 400 then.
I would say, yeah, something like that is usually safe for even 400 to 800 now. If you got any sort of entry level camera now, is probably pretty safe.
Okay.
The lower that number, the cleaner your output is, though.
So if you're going to use a cell phone camera that's not going to have all the manual settings, can you just come back in either like Lightroom or Camera Raw within Photoshop?
So yeah, that's another thing I was going to talk about. If you have a cell phone that shoots RAW, I would definitely recommend doing it if you're doing your production. Any of the newer iPhones can shoot a RAW file now. I think a bunch of the Androids can shoot RAW files as well. You don't necessarily, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry, a raw file?
RAW file.
Okay.
Basically, that's as much info.
Beginner 101 here.
Yeah, no, please, like,
Okay.
that's what I'm here for. I have like all this in my head, and like to me, it's like like that. It's like 1, 2, 3 for me, but I understand I need to slow down. But that said, RAW files essentially is just data. When you see like a JPEG, it's already smashed into an image. The RAW file is just numbers. And essentially what you can do is manipulate those. It's just data. So once you're shooting in RAW, you have more control in post-production to fix your image, dial it in exactly how you want. So what I just did with that image right here, you listen to me, computer. So since I'm shooting in RAW, I can fix this, and I'll show you that real quick. 5600. Boom. If I was shooting this in JPEG, it would try to add blue to the orange and create these weird colors that wouldn't represent your art.
What software is soft?
This software is Capture One. Capture One. Adobe has Lightroom. That's what I would recommend if you're not going to be investing a lot of time into the software, because you can get Photoshop and Lightroom for like $10 a month. Yeah.
Photoshop and Lightroom.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So you just said all the aperture noise and shutter speed. This kind of camera, this is a camera.
Yeah. I'll help you. I'll take a look at it after.
With the distance?
Yeah, I think you can. I think you have a fair amount of control, but I'll take a look at it with you after, and we can see how well you can dial in with that.
And then one more very basic question. What's those umbrella shape thing?
Oh, these are softboxes.
They're the lights.
Yeah.
Is it light diffraction or it's just light inside?
Yeah, there's a light inside. I'll show you.
That's something we really want to have.
So you can if you can get softboxes, they have like little kits on Amazon and stuff like that that are great. As far as, and some of them will use like CFL bulbs, just little screw-in bulbs. Again, they're not going to be as powerful. That's why I would say get a tripod, because then you can just dial things in. And if you shoot RAW, you can color balance it correctly. But yeah, all that's in here, if everyone can see, is just a light bulb that flashes. Yeah, I have it syncing with my trigger here. So again, this is more of an elaborate setup, but it's nicer for the demonstration purposes, because I can overpower this light that's from outside.
So what can you use on a fly for something similar like that?
Window light.
Create lighting or to
Win-
create that angular lighting?
Yeah, I would say window light for sure, which I'll also go over. Basically, you want the nice big flat light for a good reproduction like that. So I'm trying to even it out. I'm not trying to create a bunch of shadow. Here, I'll turn this guy off, and I'll show you. Again, it's moody and it looks cool, like which is, it feels like it defeats my message here. But if I'm doing reproduction, I don't want moody and cool. I want clean and consistent. Yeah. And I'll demonstrate this even more when we have a piece with like texture and like gloss and stuff like that. But just for demonstration's sake.
So Nate, are you shooting at like full resolution or maximum size?
Yeah, I'm shooting RAW.
I mean, like image size, like they have fine, medium, large.
So that's if you're shooting JPEG, because again, it smashes all that information into an image for you. Basically, it's doing all that extra work that you do in the raw processing part for you, which looks great. I'll turn this off real quick. But again, if you want control and you want the biggest file and most information, shoot raw.
What is the best for websites? Is raw too much information? Or?
So you're gonna again. Who asked that? Okay. So you're going to, once you process the raw, you're going to turn it into that little JPEG for your website. But again, just when you're working behind the scenes, that's the most information to work with, and then you can output it however you need to. Yeah. But yeah, you can see like cast that shadow. You can start to get a cool museum look, like if you had this like way overhead. Very, very cool. And if you're trying to like demonstrate what this art would look like in a gallery setting for a submission, maybe that's one way you can photograph it. But yeah, please.
Is this high res as well? I mean, because a lot of websites require high res,
Right now we have the highest res.
the highest.
Yeah. But again, when I export it, you can bring it down to lower res, or you can bring it to a nice printable size for a gallery or whatever.
In this kind, in Capture One or in the Lightroom?
Any of them.
You make the change?
Any of them, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Again, this is just like starting from everything, and then you can bring it down for your needs.
And so you said you go and you put it in Lightroom or Photoshop.
Mhm.
Is it bad to do it on your phone? Like
Nope.
if you were
There's some like great
all the
editors
different
on your phone.
settings I usually just mess around with on my
Yeah.
phone.
Do you have like Adobe on your phone?
No.
Are you-
That's, I mean, just on like iPhoto.
Yeah. Okay. Their editor is actually pretty great. I don't know about their raw settings, but that said, the algorithms that Apple's put in place, and same thing with like Samsung, with their cameras, has like really dialed in a lot of like the color correction for you.
So it's okay to do it on that.
Yeah, no. I will help go over that stuff too. But yeah, the phones they're remarkable with what they've been doing. But you go ahead.
Go finish. I'm sorry.
Oh no, I'm just reiterating. Yeah.
So I have two questions concerning aperture and shutter speed. So
Uh-huh.
aperture is the amount of light that comes in. Is that correct?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Let me break down that triangle for you. So shutter speed's how fast your shutter is opening and closing.
And what does that affect?
So that's how much light you're pulling in.
Okay.
So if you do a real fast one, like obviously it's for daylight, real bright light. If you do a real slow one, that's more for like night photography. Or again, if you have minimal light that you're working with, then you need to pull in more light. So put it on a tripod, you do a longer exposure. The thing that you can potentially implement is camera shake. So that's why I recommend the tripod. So faster shutter speed, if you're doing, this is just an example, if I was out photographing like birds in like, some foreign country and they're flying away, right? I'd probably do a fast shutter speed to freeze them. And if I did a longer exposure, they would just be blurs. So you guys have the leeway when you're doing something on a tripod controlled in like an environment where you're either using the window or using lights to drag that shutter and get a clean image still. ISO or ASA, if you're a film shooter, is how sensitive your sensor is to the light. So that's another way to get more light. So if you're doing a faster shutter speed with higher ISO, you'll get more light than you'll get more light that way. And then aperture is how much light your lens is letting in. So those three together kind of get your triangle and get your exposure. Any questions more on that? Okay.
I had one about aperture, sorry. I'm remembering right that with the aperture, the bigger the number, the less light is coming in?
Exactly.
So it's the opposite with the aperture, correct? So the bigger the number, smaller amount of light.
Yes, exactly. Which is so great for photography.
I know that you cropped out all of the background when you were doing that a minute ago, but does it make a lot of difference what the background color is where you're hanging the image to do the photography?
Yes, if I was shooting on green and I was shooting light it would bounce that green into stuff. So I would probably go over a neutral color. Grays or whites are great. Even like black essentially, but that's just gonna suck that color, suck that light in. But it shouldn't affect the color of your work.
One of the things that when you're color mixing with paint, they often recommend that you mix on a gray background versus a white background because the colors are more accurate. Would the same be true for this? Or, because I've always shot on a white wall because that's generally
It's not like once your colors are accurate in your piece, it's not going to affect. Like our eyes might see like if this was on gray and I saw this blue, it'd pop more. But that said, like the colors are the colors, and we're not in the process of making the art anymore. So I think is that what your teacher might have been getting at?
I'm thinking about just the way that the eye reads the color. If it would essentially end up being closer to an accurate color faster if it was on a gray background versus on a white background.
No, that won't. So as long as you're dialed in with your white balance, it won't affect it. But again, if you're shooting, if there were like colors next to this, that's when you're going to get that spill, that bounce, that reflection of color, and that's what you want to avoid. But a grays and white, the white, all it's going to do, honestly, the edge you can't see is probably a little bit brighter, and with a gray, it'd probably be a little bit, more muted, and then a black, it would be darker around the edge. Not like the edge of the art, but like this stuff right here. Sweet, I love the questions. Anything else so far? Yeah.
What is your lighting system? Because to me, the boxes don't look like they're on, so it's all done through your.
So it's flashing. Yeah, it's basically the camera is telling it to fire, and it pops the light. But that's the little LED that's in here, and you can see that it does have like a little LED. But generally speaking, every time I shoot, it's gonna pop. Yeah.
And that's just a software setup or hardware or both on top of your camera?
It's all hardware. Like all cameras have like a little hot shoe. Now most cameras have a hot shoe, and basically you just mount a trigger. There's all sorts of brands with all sorts of triggers. Anything that's going to talk to the light, and you go from there. Cool. Yeah.
Basically, I want to build a website. I've just made 2 large paintings that are hanging up at my house.
Yeah.
In the studio. And I've taken photos on my digital SLR and on my iPad.
Yeah.
I'd like to show them both to you at some point. But basically, I get much better results on the iPad. So I'm just not sure if I'm incompetent on the.
You're not incompetent. So again, I was talking about the algorithms of the phones. Like basically what Apple and Samsung and every other phone manufacturer has done with their cameras is implement AI that reads what you're shooting, refines it as much as they think it needs to be refined, and then you get this image, you're like, wow, the colors are so good. And you're like, oh, but if you actually work your RAW file even if you're not shooting RAW, if you work your file after the fact, you can also create some crazy images.
So the SLR is still the way I should. It just seems much more technical to me.
If you need, again, if you're willing to take the time to, dive in, then you're going to have way more control over the SLR. If you need to go fast, and you don't mind the way everything's looking, go mobile. Go mobile. They're really great cameras now. But that said, if you run into an issue where you feel like you can't correct it, it doesn't look right, that's where you'll run into the lack of control. Yeah.
I have a question. Some of what I make is like assemblage that hangs. It's not a flat painting.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times I want to photograph it outside.
Okay.
So is that like a totally different class than having the control of being, inside with lights and things?
I'll take you guys outside in a little bit and just kind of like, I'll photograph some because we have a nice big open shade here. Okay. So I'll photograph some some art like on the floor and stuff. But yours,
they get lost like with what's in the background
so at that point, I would probably recommend getting some sort of backdrop that you can pop up behind your work and make sure it's nice, even light, and just go to town.
So I sometimes just have a sheet that I set things on and shoot.
Yeah.
Is it better to have a flat behind it, or?
I would try to pull the sheet taut, at least. so that way it's, you know, a flat backdrop. Yeah. And then I saw one more hand.
You know, fluorescence, navigating with the lamp, any suggestions on controlling the light that's hitting it when you're, say you're shooting at night? Put the art on the wall.
Okay. But you were saying fluorescence?
Yeah, overhead fluorescence.
Oh, okay.
Working around.
So if you're shooting,
With a cell phone.
okay, with cell phone, so you're shooting at night, what kind of art? Like
2D stuff.
like wall art like this? Okay. So basically you're saying you have the fluorescence on and you're shooting at night and they're messing up the color?
Yeah.
So,
We're actually more of a glare.
oh, the glare.
Yes.
The glare is something I'll talk about too, but that's something that you probably should move your art. Actually, I'll do that right now. I'll show you guys some glare. 'Cause we have a perfect piece for that. Like I said, that was like super ideal. If somebody came in with art like that, I'd be like, cool, this will be 5 minutes and I'll be, I mean, an hour. But yeah, you can see this. So not only is it going to be reflective, but it's also that like the plastic, gosh, I can't think of words. But yeah, it's plastic, so it's going to be extra glary and extra reflective, and I can see everything perfectly in it. So what I'll do is I'll start here, and I'll start with the problem, and I'll show you guys that evenly lighting it will fix it. But because I'm moving my light, like you don't have the power to do that with the fluorescence, and you're just thinking like these kind of fluorescence, right? Is there any way to move your art?
Limited to my studio, so I've got bathroom door right here, so I'll take stuff to the door. So I've got these fluorescents overhead, and I'll try different parts of the studio there, and I can manage it. Sometimes I use matte board or something.
Okay.
To eliminate the glare.
Yeah, you can totally. I was gonna say, can you turn them off, or you know, a matte board would be great, and just cut it out, and then from there light it. Yeah. So if you happen to have a softbox or anything like that, or window. So is that the only source of light in the room?
In the room at night, yes, but daytime I'll take the living room.
Okay.
We've got a large window there.
Okay. Yeah. Then yeah, if you're able just to move your art, then that's what I would recommend. Fluorescents like any sort of overhead light can be tricky. So that's why we turn these off, because obviously more control. But if I were to be using, actually I'll show you guys that too in a little bit. So bear with me. But don't forget, if you don't hear that answer from me in a second, just bug me again. All right, so actually let's start with some glare. All right. Should be glary. There we go. So you can see already that it's all about your angle of incident for any sort of glare. So because I can see like the whole back of the room because I'm looking at it right here, and that light's bouncing perfectly over here. If you take your light to the side, same thing with like if you're doing window light, if you have it directly in front of the window, you're going to see the glare. So you want to turn it and get indirect light. And now that's one. Cool, now that's completely away. And you can't even see the plastic. And then, boom. And there we go. So you just really want to avoid having the light directly camera side. You want it to be coming in from the sides. And I'll also show you it with kind of a hard light too. I mean, that's a loaded question.
Tell me if my question makes sense. I see what you mean about the, from the side.
Mm-hmm.
So, but if you're using
You want
And
to
it's just
not
in a
pop
line.
your flash, direct flash.
Mm-hmm.
I'm basically going to demonstrate that right now. So imagine that this was that flash that you're talking about. Strike that. Cool. So you can, pretty sure a lot of you can see that reflection, right? Or actually, I'll do this. Maybe it's better. Yeah. Well, the reason you couldn't see it again is because that angle incident, like it's coming from the way that you're viewing it.
That looks like the pictures I take right now.
So yeah, you really want to avoid. Here, let's see if I can just show you guys real quick. This is where it's probably gonna be pretty dark. Oh wow. So you can already see that right. There's basically no piece of art there. So I'm going to, since I have the tripod, I'm going to increase my shutter speed and my ISO a little bit to kind of bring that in. There we go. Even though the glare is there, now we're, it's art. But even with the hard light, if we just kind of move this aside, bring your light back. So the further, I forgot the exact distance in feet, but basically the further back your hard light is, the more like the sun it'll be. But essentially, right there, I can see that that's going to look pretty clean. I might get reflection from the stuff in the back, but let's see. Yeah, not too bad. But you can still see, even though the art looks clean, this is brighter than this. So if I was actually trying to do this for reproduction, I wouldn't feel like that is accurate as much as I'd like it to be. Godfrey? Yeah.
What is reproduction?
Reproduction's if you're going to make prints of your art.
And then two, how concerned when you are taking a picture, like, I feel like I've taken like product photography or like listed like shoes to sell online or something, and like been obsessed with making sure like I'm centered. Are you like a fan of just like, hey, I'll just crop this later?
No, I mean, honestly, like I'm just like, kind of going fast right here. If I was doing this in the studio and I'm in a controlled environment. What I mean is, if I was trying to take my time with it, I would center up as much as possible to get it as clean into the camera as possible. Because once you're dialed in like that, it's less work on your computer, and I'm all about less work on my computer. Yoko. Go ahead. No, if you have the resolution for it, go for it. But if like you're shooting with, again, maybe take it back to the phones here. If you're shooting with a 12 megapixel cell phone, you don't have as much leeway to crop in. This is like a 48 megapixel camera. So I have plenty of room to come in and still get a really clean image. But with a phone, you want to probably fill your frame as much as possible. Yeah.
When I take the picture like that, it's artwork already in the frame. Even if I avoid the reflection of the outside light, still I get the image reflecting at the back side of the room, or even myself taking pictures.
So then the best thing you can do, and this is if you can get like a black like bed sheet or something and put it behind you and kill all that light. Like if you're in a situation like that with lots of bouncing light and you can't get it out by moving your light, and like luckily right behind is like there's no like glare. If I was shooting with this behind me, you would see that in the image even though it looks pretty clean. Honestly, if I went and detail checked this, I'd probably see some reflections. So that said, something that's going to kill the light behind you is what I'd recommend.
But still you are standing there and shooting, and then how you eliminate
You're in the
your reflection. So I get in my photos artwork with me holding camera.
Okay, gotcha. I see what you're saying. So, so your art is pretty reflective.
Yes, it's already framed because it's like a kind of paper has wrinkles and stuff, and it doesn't work if I take photograph before framing. It doesn't look good and it will be misunderstood.
Yeah.
I frame it and then take picture, but then I try to manage the reflection of the light, but anything, it's like a mirror reflecting.
Yep. No, I got you.
And how can I?
Is it actually like a mirror, or is it like the reflection in the glass?
No, it's just regular glass or plexiglass.
Okay. Okay. That's the word I was looking for before. Plexi. It's amazing. So yeah, you can. That's definitely an option to take the plexi or the glass out. But also, I would say wear black. Black is going to suck the light away. And if you can wear black and put your camera on a timer, so honestly, if you have like basically again a black bed sheet and you kind of come over, that's going to eliminate a lot of the reflection. Yeah, please.
Also, a recommendation that I've done in the past is I've built a wall where I've used like white cardboard.
Yep.
And all I'm doing now is putting my lens through that.
Yep.
And I'm shooting and you can't see me or anything because there's now this white.
Yeah.
Foam core.
Yeah.
Like that. You can even cut a hole in one and use that as your.
And if you go to like art supply stores and get gator board and stuff too. Yeah.
The dollar store, you can buy the core.
Yep.
I've got a question too about,
Yeah.
so what about three-dimensional objects and sometimes they're in cases?
I'll show you guys that a little bit later. We did a little bit of a demo with some sculpture work last session too. Does anybody have three-dimensional art here? Okay. Okay, cool. Then I'll totally. That's perfect. I'll demonstrate kind of lighting that in a couple different ways and how I would just go about it. Cool.
Tina, did you have a question?
Yes.
Your hand's been up for a while.
Okay, so I'm only shooting with my iPhone.
Yeah.
Okay, so don't have all of these.
Totally fine.
things.
Yeah.
I work in fused glass, so I take a lot of reflective things. And I also have a piece that has a mirror in it, so we can talk about that mirror thing. But if I don't have this light, and maybe I'm shooting my thing at night because that's when I'm working.
Okay.
Are you saying that in order to get a clean picture off something reflective with my iPhone, that I need to have two separate lights coming from the side so I don't get that reflection?
I would say that's going to be the fastest way to get a nice image is to have even light distributed through, yeah, from the sides. I would maybe look into getting how big are your pieces?
I have one of those little light boxes.
That's what I was gonna say. If you had a light box and just even like some like Home Depot work lamps on the sides, shooting into it, just figure out the distribution of those to make your light nice and even, and that's probably going to be your best bet.
And then just take it with no flash on the iPhone.
Yeah, you already have your light going. Yeah, turn your flash off 100%, and then use that light.
So you don't have to use a flash. Like
No.
You keep using it, like so with your iPhone.
Yeah, you can use steady lights.
You
Yeah,
don't need a flash.
you do not need a flash.
And does it matter what type of actual light
Yeah,
you
what
use?
color?
Like, do you use the bulb? You know how they have all these
Yeah.
different color bulbs?
Yeah. I would probably go with a daylight balance. That's going to probably be.
One of those that I hate for regular lighting.
Yeah.
But they'd be great for art lighting, huh?
Mm-hmm. You can get away with the tungsten bulbs. It's just, and your camera should recognize it. But again, like if you're shooting the daylight, like I feel like that's like the base, and then anything else is an adjustment. But I'll show you guys this too. So this also does a tungsten.
Oh yeah, that's what it was shooting earlier with that yellow.
So that said, again, if you have a camera that can control, here I'll take one picture. You know, I'm going to center this up because I feel like self-conscious now. Okay. So again, you can see how it's orange, and my camera's not adjusting because it's in a manual mode. So I could color correct it on my computer, but also, if I can see my camera, if I adjust my white balance in here and take the same photo, bada bing. So it really doesn't matter what bulbs you get, just make sure they're the same. But I would probably go to daylight because that, again, right out of the gate, you're not going to be seeing yellow or orange on your image. You're going to see essentially the colors that your eyes are seeing. And again, now that I'm set in for tungsten on this, if I shoot this, it's going to get crazy blue. Yeah. So white balance is definitely a thing you should keep in mind. That's why I say shoot raw, because if you shoot raw and you happen to mess up your white balance, you can fix it after the fact.
I noticed your file says .nef. Is that how I know I'm shooting in RAW? How you get my file?
So, yeah, every manufacturer. Oh, do you shoot with a camera?
Yeah.
Which one? A Sony. Their RAW files are named. Every manufacturer has a different name for their RAW files. One of like the global ones is called a .dng. This is Nikon's NEF. Canon has CR2. Everyone has a different one, but the RAW files, again, are just the data. And if you can't shoot RAW with that for some reason, I would just dial in your settings before you take your picture. So get as close to perfect before you hit that shutter. Yeah?
Are we going to learn how to shoot RAW with an iPhone? Does that make sense?
I'll take a look. I think it's just a setting to do. I think it's Apple. Is it called Apple RAW? Does anybody know?
It's like AI, some extinction.
Yeah. If you have like any of the past, I think 2 generations and so on, like they have it implemented just in the camera.
Oh,
And then
I think I have it.
Just happens
an
automatically.
I think you have to maybe do a quick setting, but you can shoot it.
Okay.
But again, that said, if you dial in your settings beforehand and you know the image looks clean, you're probably in a good place. It's more if like you're in a tricky situation you need to correct later.
Oh,
So on
okay.
your iPhone, like say I'm shooting that and you like tap where you want that little like yellow box to go and it focuses on that.
Yep.
Do you just tap the middle of your item?
Yeah, I would probably just, like her face is probably what I would tap on this.
Okay.
So what it's doing with that is detecting the contrast. So that's why sometimes you can't focus. It feels weird focusing on stuff. But this is real clean contrast, so it would pick that up real easily. Yep. And I'll get to you.
If this technique applies to, let's say, not framed art, it's just two-dimensional art, but then there is a shiny part and matte part.
Yeah.
And because mixing the different kind of medium.
Yep.
So maybe the background is matte, but then partially it's textured. It reflects the light because adding gloss to it.
Yeah.
So one setting may not gonna work matte, but then other setting may gonna shine back, or the line has some shiny edges.
Yeah. So the 2 bigger light setup that I was showing you kind of works for everything. I've had artists who had totally large textured pieces with gloss and matte, ranging from everything. Plus, it like hyper textured. It was coming way out. But the big light will just kind of work on that real well. It's when I have something like this, the hard light. So again, these big lights, I would call it soft light. Small lights, super bright like this, are hard light. Hard because you can see the shadows, right? It's creating more of that. So if you have a cool textured piece and you want to like be moody with it, you might want to use some hard light because it's going to shine all those like shiny parts, and any of like the deeper parts are going to go into shadow, and it creates a cool effect.
So if you're not using a flash, do you still use soft light?
So essentially, if I wanted to, I can put these softboxes on that and just run them exactly how I was doing the flash. The flash is just for ease of like moving things around in demonstration, and how I would shoot in the studio. I have a question here.
What did you change on the camera that it's more blue than the last one?
That's white balance.
Oh, what?
Yeah, so white balance is, again, something you can control when you're shooting in RAW after the fact. But if you're not shooting RAW and you need to shoot JPEG, you want to dial in your white balance beforehand. And all it is doing is, again, adjusting the color so it's accurate. all the colors are accurate. So standard daylight, white balance is 5600. And that's, okay, I should probably tell you about Kelvin scale. Kelvin scale is, you'll see it if you go to a hardware store and you look at the bulbs, you'll see like daylight or soft white and stuff like that. But then also you'll see a little number like 3300 or 5600, especially if you look at fluorescent bulbs. That is a Kelvin scale, and that's just how blue or orange your images are. So again, if you're shooting with tungsten bulbs that are around 3300, just adjust for that if you're doing manual settings on your white balance, and then go from there. Matt?
I was just wondering, like, do you have a favorite focal length, like lens that you like to use?
That's another great point that I haven't made yet. So if you're shooting, so this camera goes from a pretty wide to a good kind of mid-range. If you want to get clean lines out of your art, it corrected. That is not what I wanted to do. Don't you correct. Give me 1 second. Say generic. I'm going to, there you go. There it is. So that's what it looks like actually out of camera. You see how like those lines are wonky? That's because I shot with a wide angle lens close to try to fill the frame. So the best bet is to zoom out, get like 50 millimeters or a little past that. And I'll show you that on the phones because the phones can do it now too. And that's what I would recommend to get clean lines on your art.
50 millimeter or less, did you say? 50 millimeter
Or more. 50,
more.
yeah. But yeah, you can see that pretty easily between these two. They're almost filling the same frame, but you can see how distorted it is. And you want to not have distortion in your art. Unless you do and you want to get creative. But if, again, reproduction and for gallery submissions, you probably want to showcase it as clean as possible. Say again? For focal length? So I'd probably go 50 or higher. Ideally, probably somewhere like in the 70 millimeter plus range. So if you have, if you got a DSLR with a kit lens, they usually start at like 18 to 55. Just zoom all the way out and then take your shot. But if you happen to have another lens on top of that, I would just make sure it's 55 or past that. Any other questions on that? And with your phones, real quickly, I'll show you or tell you. So you know how it has the 0.5, the 1, and the 2 or the 3? So you want to, if you can, shoot with the 1 or the 2/3. That will give you like a cleaner image or a less distorted image.
1, 2, or 3?
Yeah. The 1 is like the normal lens. It's a little bit wider than you need, but it has the best sensor behind it. So I would try to shoot with that one. But if you want to really clean up your lines and you have enough light, then shoot with the longer lens. Are you seeing that right now?
I'm seeing 0.5x.
Yep, 0.5 is.
Or 2.5.
Yeah, so go to 0.5 real quick.
Okay.
You see how distorted like your edges are, right? And if you go to 1,
One, it zooms in.
it cleans up a little bit. That's your best sensor.
Okay.
And then if you go to 2,
2.5, it gets really close.
yeah, and that's going to be, again, your most evenly, it's non-distorted kind of lens.
So should I take it then on, like if I'm taking a small piece of art, should I take it at that 2.5?
I would do it if you have enough light.
Okay.
So again, it gets a little tricky because they have AI in it, but it's not the best sensor in the camera.
Okay.
So in that, behind each lens is a sensor. Look at the back of your phone real quick. So behind each one is a sensor. Your 1 on your, the 1 on the camera lens has the best sensor. So it's going to be the best in lower light.
Okay.
It's going to be the most stabilized. It's your best bet as far as making sure the image is clean, not shaky, and whatnot. The 2, 2.5, or the 3, whatever your phone has, usually doesn't have the best sensor, but it is still a good sensor.
Okay.
So if you have plenty of light, you can totally use that.
Okay.
But if you're shooting in lower light, you might start to get a little bit of camera shake, and it might be trying to compensate for the lower quality sensor by raising your ISO and making the image not as clean as it could be. You'll see that like kind of a distinctive like cell phone look where like the edges are like a little bit crunchy and they feel like almost comical.
Okay.
Yeah.
It goes all the way up to 12. So is it better if I'm cropping on something to crop it on?
Once you start going, so the little buttons on it are, yeah, don't do, so I'll tell you about that. So you have 0.5, 1, and then 2.5.
Yeah, and then it goes up to 12.
So all those numbers are optical zoom, which means it's a physical zoom with a camera lens. It's swapping between the lenses you have on the back of your phone.
Okay.
When you do to 12, it's going into a digital zoom. So it's a fake zoom, and it's punching in on the sensor. So you're not getting the most information possible. It's basically taking your furthest sensor, or maybe even your one sensor, and zooming in on it.
Okay.
So the quality goes down.
Okay. So try to just take it at 1. And then edit it.
Don't zoom in after the lens you select.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Is that the similar thing to the portrait mode?
Portrait mode's taking usually that long lens. I wouldn't recommend portrait mode because it's trying to cut out your image and create bokeh. So if it doesn't get it right, then you have this edge that looks all funky. Any more phone-related questions?
Other than if you were trying to take a moonshot.
That's a different class.
Even with an 11, you take it to 10 because it has, I think, 12 or 13. It just makes it fuzzy. So
Yeah.
the data, you can't.
Yeah, so essentially what you're like, it's again that digital zoom. So you think you're getting closer, but the quality's not there because it's. Yeah, it's basically the sensor's still here. With the optical zoom, you're changing the focal length on the lens, but with the digital zoom, you're just punching in until you frame up what you want, which means like you're not getting the whole sensor, you're getting like this much now, and that's why the quality goes down. So definitely don't zoom in on your artwork like that.
Just to clarify, am I right to understand then that it wouldn't be much different than from taking the picture at the one setting and then going onto your computer or altering, your editing app and zooming in and cropping?
That's essentially the same thing. So
Okay.
I'm essentially digitally zooming when I'm cropping in on this, but I have the resolution for it.
Instead of going on the computer and doing it, your phone's doing it in the moment, so you don't essentially have to crop it later?
Restate that question.
So basically what happens when you put your phone on a 12 setting is you're skipping the step of having to go into your computer and crop down that one little section?
Essentially, but again, you're degrading the quality of your image from the start.
Yeah, either way, right?
I mean, essentially either way, yeah. Like if I was zooming 12x on like a cell phone picture that I put on here, it wouldn't look as good. But when you're doing it on your cell phone too, like I feel like you're already starting with like the lowest quality you can get, and you don't have control later to like be like, you know what, I'm gonna come back out a little bit and save some of my quality. So I would never try to zoom in like that.
I hear you saying then, is that taking it at one is still just the best way to go and you can crop
Yeah,
however you need to.
exactly.
And it's basically going to end up being the same as doing it on your phone.
Well, you shouldn't ever need to, like, if you're shooting at 1, don't shoot so far away that you need to crop into 12. Like, use your feet, zoom in.
I was gonna say, get closer.
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely get closer.
Take
Like,
one
and then just, again, level out your phone, try to get the cleanest lines possible, and then go from there. Let me see what else I need to. White balance. All right, so we've gone over white balance. We've gone over aperture and shutter speed and ISO. Lens selection, hard light, soft light. Yeah. Oh, let's get a textured piece. Can I pull one of these pieces from here? This has a direct mirror. Who's... May I use this piece? I don't know whose this is. Cool. Cool to use it?
Yeah, for sure.
All right. So this is a good example of like some cool texture that I'm going to show you, like bringing some of the texture out for like a more of a moody shot, and also try to keep it clean if you're trying to do a submission for a gallery or something. All right.
So I have a question in regards to the iPhone again.
Yeah.
Can you do high res on the iPhone? Or can you, what I try to do is take a photo from my iPhone and make it larger, you know, through putting in Adobe. So from like 750 to 1200. And I think you lose quality.
Yeah, so there's actually really cool software. If you guys write this down, if you want it, it's called Gigapixel by a company called Topaz.
Say it again.
Gigapixel.
Gigapixel.
Yeah, I'll get that in just a second. And basically, it's an upscaling software, but they do a really, really, really good job of upscaling your work by, I think, up to like 6x. So I would do that versus trying to upscale it in Adobe.
Okay, so it was, I'm sorry, what was the
Gigapixel?
Giga?
Yep. Go ahead.
So the latest, greatest Camera Raw version in this Photoshop
Mhm.
is meant to compete with the Topaz Labs. So it
Oh.
actually is way better than it used to be.
Okay.
So if you were looking at it from, because I do websites, so yeah, from a cost perspective, what you don't spend on the Topaz, if you're going to spend for the Adobe, it might work with
Oh yeah, if they've upgraded it and like it's competing with Topaz, yeah, please definitely check that out too.
Not quite that very last nth, but it's pretty darn close.
Yeah.
It's already completed.
Well, that's awesome. Yeah. I didn't know about that, so there we go. So those two, so it's in Camera Raw or Lightroom, I'm guessing.
Camera Raw in Photoshop. What did you say?
Oh, okay, okay.
So, well, he's talking about Topaz, which is awesome.
Right.
But there is the latest, greatest version of Photoshop. Camera Raw, which if you're on a Mac, is Command-Shift-A to bring up the Camera Raw section of the
Here.
Photoshop. Does almost the same thing, and it imports almost to the same level. It's like within 90%.
We're about to take a look. Okay, so
So Topaz is a program?
So yeah, Topaz is a software company, and they make various different pieces of software programs. They have some really, really cool ones, Gigapixel being one of them, where that's just an upscaling software that keeps everything pretty clean. So you were saying in Adobe or in Photoshop,
Yeah.
do you have to bring up Camera Raw for it, or do
Yeah,
you?
you have to bring up Camera Raw. So if you open your image in your Photoshop,
Yep, it's open.
then are you Mac? It should be Command-Shift-A.
But it's not going to be a raw file, but I guess it'll work. All right, so it's a TIFF, and just for demonstration purposes, let's see if we can do this. Is it in optics or what?
I'd have to Google it to be, there's just so many. It's not something that I use that often because I don't do a lot of photography. Most of what I do is graphic.
Gotcha.
Yeah. But I know it's in there because it was a big deal when it came out. I did compare the two before I re-upped on my Topaz subscription.
Ah, fair enough. But yeah, if that's a solution, I would definitely Google that as well. But upscaling software instead of just like in Photoshop or in Lightroom or in Capture One or anything like that, just like scaling it up, you need some sort of AI software to read your image and upscale it for you. So whether you use the Photoshop one or the Topaz one, I would definitely look into an upscaler. Especially if you're doing cell phone work, because that's going to, like now your 12 megapixel phone can be up to like 60 megapixels, which is crazy cool.
So that's not like in the Apple, like that's on Photoshop.
Yeah, you'd have to send your image to your computer.
Why would you upscale something?
Reproduction.
Oh, so if like I took a picture of the little one and then I wanted to print it 6 feet by 6 feet, then I would upscale.
Exactly that. Yeah, Because if you took a picture of that and with a cell phone or something, and you try to do 6 feet by 6 feet,
Yeah.
you'd see pixels.
Sure.
Yeah.
So super resolution is what you want to Google for if you want to learn how to do it in the Photoshop.
Okay, is it in Photoshop or is it in RAW?
It's in the Photoshop where the RAW pops out of, like you open in Photoshop and then you do the thing where it opens the camera RAW inside Photoshop.
Okay.
And it's called super resolution.
Okay, so everybody heard that? Write that down next to your gigapixel. Do we have like another nail that I can come in a little bit tighter? Cool. I'm just waiting on a nail real quick, and we'll get this hung up so it's more flat. Flatter?
Do you have any feelings on,
I have lots of feelings.
let's talk about our feelings.
Let me get a chair.
More than 2 hours.
Because I don't have a white wall,
Yeah.
and for whatever other reason, I find that I take a lot of my pictures on the ground, outside.
We're
all
going
straight down.
we're going to do that. Like,
Is there any negatives to doing that as opposed to putting them up? on
no,
the
honestly,
wall
that's like
with them?
one of like the greatest tricks. Like, food.
Okay.
If you ever, food photographers.
Okay.
Like, if you've seen some really cool food photos, like especially restaurants,
Yeah.
it'll
Like
be
in the
on
glass and
like put a plate next to that window on the ground, and you
Yeah.
got a clean food image.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Okay. Good.
So yeah.
I got a shadow on there myself, and
Yeah, right. You won't get out of the way.
Oh.
I know that.
So, Z, do you need a second for that?
Yeah, I can't find a nail.
Okay. I'm gonna take them outside, and we'll do like a quick demo on that.
Like I found a hammer.
Oh, we're halfway there.
Or take the picture on the
Take it
floor.
up, take that nail from that hole and.
This
put
is
it
for
up
the
there.
exhibit that you see around. I don't want to mess with it.
Yeah, I don't want to like screw this in more.
Yeah, let me find one. I'll find one. You guys can go outside.
Yeah, we'll go outside and do a little bit of demo with our phones and pieces of art in the ground, and then we'll go from there. Very cool. All right, so this is a smaller piece. If you guys do want to come up and kind of see it, please let me know. Don't feel shy. I will take this off here, and you guys can totally jump up. Don't worry, there will be pictures up here too. All right. So I'm going to start with these other lights. Strike this for a sec. And yeah, just watch the cord. That's the only thing. And make sure it's on. One of the things you should definitely do is turn your lights on. All right, so this has a mirror in it, so you're going to see me. To avoid, oh, this is going to be way blown out. Maybe. Maybe. Oh, it's because we're in Photoshop. Yeah, it's blown out.
Oh. That's exactly how mine look. I'm doing it right.
I'm just aspiring to be like you, you know? All right, so I'm going to dial this back a little bit.
It's a neat art. Put a caption, your picture here. Right in your face.
All right, let's see if that's any better. Hey, we're getting there. We're getting there. I'm going to come down a little bit further on my ISO. You can see like how different it is. So these flashes, like even though they just pop for a second, they're way brighter and more efficient than these kind of lights. That said, get a tripod, you're all good all day. But that's where we're at as far as just getting a fairly clean image. I'm not too obnoxious in there, but I am in there. For a direct, this is a circumstance where I'd probably do like Z's trick where you have like the little mat board in front with a lens cutout, because then you could put your lens like right in the center and then just maybe Photoshop it out. You can do that on the phone or a computer. But that's kind of how I would start to get a clean image. And then I'll show you guys the one light.
So that camera didn't flash, it was just the two sides?
Yep,
That
it's just the
flash?
two sides. Yeah, there's no flash on here. It's just a trigger. So I would say more often than not, unless like you're going for like either that like old disposable camera nostalgia look or like that party vibe, like direct flash isn't the way to go for a lot of things.
Yeah.
You want to take that flash off your camera, control your light, and the world opens up a ton when you do that.
So how would you make that appear to be a mirror in your image?
Right.
Like,
So
I think that's a key focal point of the piece of art is that the mirror is in the middle. So.
white.
Okay.
Yeah, I would probably do some white, and then I would shoot this directly and probably just Photoshop the little lens out. But using white in there will show it as more of like, that kind of silverish effect.
Using white as the mat board, you mean?
Yeah, if I was like shooting with like a matte board here,
Uh-huh.
I'd probably use white.
Okay.
Yeah. Or again, change the angles of this, and then have like a white board. Because if this was down again, like it was on these screws,
Right.
I'd probably you could probably shoot it like at direct angle and then fix it in post, but have the little bit of like whiteboard here to kind of, again, just reflect it back up and give you like a distinct like mirror effect. And I'll just show you like shooting it from here. This is just to demonstrate that like what white would probably do. It's gray because it's way in the back of the room, but it's essentially, you'd be filling that color with like a white. All right, so let's look at this with just the one light here. And we'll start with like a little more drama. Yeah, you do. So again, because this is a big light source, you're still going to get like a nice cascade of light across. I'll bring this up a little bit further. You're seeing it off the projector. If you check it out right here.
Oh, on the screen?
Yeah.
Like, doesn't the color seem dull? Oh, yeah, it looks way better on the screen.
Yeah. Yeah. Bear with the projector.
Yeah, way better on the screen.
Promise I'm not leading you astray. All right, so we're just gonna add some more light the way our eyes kind of see it. So, does that go through? Maybe I need to do a little bit more. Hold, please. All right.
What years of practice do you have at this?
You just started last week.
Yeah.
We trained them specifically.
Just for you guys. Okay. So yeah, so this is kind of how I would start to light it dramatically, because I like our eyes are going to naturally see things the way the sun shines on them. So you want that light to be a little bit higher. Again, if you uplight it, you can totally get a cool effect. But you start like, especially with when I'm shooting people, it's called like either horror lighting or something like that, where you just have the uplight and it just doesn't look natural. It feels surreal. I find that I like to just kind of keep that rule of thumb for most things and try to light from the top like the sun would be, and then shape my light from there. So that's with a big light source kind of coming through and creating this cool little shadow. Again, the colors look much more vibrant on here, and it's definitely crispier on here. So by all means, please feel free to come up after and we can go through some of the images. Go ahead, Matt.
Do you much calibration of your computer monitor so that you know you're getting the colors that you see?
Yeah, that's a great question. And yeah, if you're going to be doing anything on your computer, look into getting a color calibrator. A company called Spider makes one, and then there's Monkey something. But basically, looking to monitor color calibration and get one of those, or go in with a couple of different artists and pass it around and just calibrate every couple months. And that'll help you get the most accurate color possible when you're doing your post-production. Yep.
Do you normally try
They're pretty good, but you can color calibrate these too.
Okay.
I actually invested in like a actual Adobe RGB monitor, and like it has like really good color accuracy, but I still have to color calibrate that too. But yeah, I mean, generally speaking, most people nowadays see things on screens that are Apple screens or equal to, so that's not a big deal for web. But if you're printing your work, then you want to make sure it's really color calibrated, not just looking good on the screen, because it's going to save you time between you and your printer going back and forth, dialing in the color, and it's going to just increase your workflow.
I know that on Procreate app,
Yeah.
you can create art that is in CMYK color group, and you can create images that are not in the other color group. But in order to get them printed digitally and accurately, my understanding is they need to be in the CMYK.
Not anymore. So if you do sRGB, you're totally fine. A lot of printers nowadays don't even worry about CMYK. They have color calibrated printers for sRGB. Adobe RGB is like the primo standard, but a lot of monitors don't have that, so you're not going to see it anyway. But if you do happen to have Adobe RGB monitor, by all means edit crazy with Adobe RGB and then send it to a printer and say it's Adobe RGB, and their printer profiles will be able to accommodate that. Yeah.
Is there a situation where you would use that it'd be advantageous to use the light directly overhead, like one of the?
Yeah, so that'll. I mean, I don't have like the boom armor here for that right now, but again, that's how the sun would be coming down.
Like if that was on the floor or on the table.
Oh yeah, if you're doing top down.
Yeah. Angles, like when would you use it, like directly over top of the piece?
Not over top like here, right? Over top here, correct?
Is there a time when you would go directly the other way? Like
So I think that's something I demonstrated earlier. Like you start to get that on-camera flash feel, that like direct flash shot. And again, if you're not doing it for nostalgia or like an artsy purpose, it's not the best way to photograph the work. But if you came from the top, yeah, if you had a table, like if I was here, art was here, and my light was here shooting this way, that totally works.
but not directly like parallel, like above it.
I wouldn't put it directly above it. You don't necessarily need to do that. Yeah. Questions? Good? All right, I'll demonstrate with this light now and show you more of a dramatic effect to it. And then I'll get some actual like three-dimensional pieces up here. Do we have another pedestal, see?
Yeah. You want one like this one here?
Yeah, I like that one.
Just take that one.
Okay. All right, striking on that.
Someone said they had a sculpture. Right? Are you doing a sculpture right
I'll do that after I do
okay.
this real quick.
now? Just right here.
Yeah, that's fine. Okay. Can everyone see this okay? I'm just going to, for demonstration purposes, show you how it looks when I put it all over the place. All right. So, again, that's that like side lighting. Not very flattering for this. Doesn't looks odd. That's uplighting. Again, it starts to look odd. It's not how our eyes would normally see it. But again, if you're doing it for effect, like I can totally understand. Not something I would do for a gallery submission. Most of the time, if you're in a museum, you're always going to see it lit, something like that, you know. But again, if you want to have a little more creative control, you can light like this or come over top and just change the angle ever so slightly. Again, the closer you get, the more intense it's going to get, and the fall off's going to be faster. You can see how that spreads, right, on the white wall. So if you want to evenly light your work, you want to come back a little bit. But if you want that more dramatic effect, kind of come in. And I'll take a couple pictures so you guys can see it. And again, that's that raking light, right? So like it's close to the side of it. It's creating all that depth and shadow. Trying to break. There we go. Let's try that. Is it a face? Yeah. It does look like a face. A little bit, add a piece of a little Easter egg for your art. All right. I'm going to break some rules here. Let's see. Is that enough? Almost. Almost. Bring it up, actually. Yeah, so on here, it's got like a lot of drama to it, but that edge, that shadow is like, it's just crazy deep. So I'd probably pull this out a little bit. And all that's going to do is start to fill in a little bit. And this is, honestly, this is like kind of my creative process if I'm shooting anything. I like to play with it and see what I like and then grow, continue to grow from point A. All right, again, seeing it on here is way different than that projector. I'll brighten it up a little bit and try to show it on here. I am shooting in RAW right now. And now I'm overexposing by a stop to kind of get this effect. So even in here, when it's like exposing, it's trying to pick up I think right now it's trying to pick up that bright white. So my camera is thinking that everything should be exposed for this. So now I'm bringing this up so everything comes up. But yeah, that's like a real quick demo on just more of like dramatic lighting for kind of like semi 2D work. It's 3D, but like it's still pretty flat. And then I'll bring out, who had a piece? You had a piece, and then I saw like handbags too, right? All right, let's do both of those. And then if we have time, we'll get one more. Cool. Oh, it is. Okay. All right. So maybe we'll get to 2. Do you have a little stand for this at all? Okay. So I'm going to have a hand stand. Z's lovely hand will be my hand stand. Well, you could do a handstand too. We must entertain.
It's been a while. Yeah.
So, do you want to come up here for a sec? Tell me about this and how you envision it, like resting if it was on display.
Well, I guess that's kind of what I need help with. Like,
okay.
Like how would I set it up?
Well, I mean, I honestly think you'd probably want to tilt it up like this. This is like instinctively what I'm doing.
Right. And mostly what I need it for is social media and then like submissions.
Okay. So for something like this, do we have that whiteboard still?
Yeah, I gotta go dig it up.
Okay.
And then I would be using my cell phone.
Yeah, so essentially what I would do for this, and this goes back to like, I'm sure you guys have studied the Renaissance painters. You'll see like a back 3/4, like that window light, that Rembrandt, on a lot of things. So I would say we would start with something like that. Let's go with the 1 just for demonstration purposes. This isn't going to be a perfect shot, but it'll give you the idea that I'm going for. Actually, as a matter of fact, let me do this real quick. We'll bring this light. And this will give you guys the idea that I was talking about earlier. Really doesn't matter if it's a flash or whatever. It's how you shape your light, and your light's going to be your light. We'll just put this on here. All right, striking. Get that up. Yeah, I'll start there. So you can already see it's a nice kind of dramatic. I like it. That back 3/4 is really, really nice. With something like this, I'd be concerned about throwing another flash over this way. Will that work?
Will that do something?
It might work. Let's try that. Can you kind of stay around though?
For sure.
Let's have you like right here, just in case. But yeah, if I threw another flash, you see how reflective this is? Like, you're gonna pick that up real quick. And just for demonstration's sake. Yeah, let's go with the whiteboard. But I'm not honestly gonna pretend this is a whiteboard too.
Okay.
You let me know when I'm close.
Closer. That's good.
So what I'm kind of trying to demonstrate here is what a whiteboard would do. See, it's all white in here. And that's going to give a nice big reflection back in. And I might be able to flash this and get a clean shot. So I'm going to try that right now.
You're not turning the second light on, you're just using it as if it was matte board or white or whatever.
Yeah, like a board like this. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I'm going to turn it on just to see if I could get that shot. But I have a feeling because I'm using that light and this light, it's going to just overpower. But we're about to see if I can get this done real quick. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, on here, like, we're already real close. But what that big softbox is doing is acting like a big indirect light, even though it's technically direct. But you can get away with getting like a nice whiteboard. So I would say a useful tool to definitely get is to go to an art store and get some matte board. And bigger, better. Indirect light is so powerful for 3D art. But yeah.
Can I bring this down? Are we good?
Yeah, we can bring it down. Look at that. See, one shot.
Thanks, Allie. It's beautiful.
And then, Ali, did you see it on here?
I did, yeah.
Okay.
You should show everybody on here.
I know that.
Yeah, you guys are.
I know.
Yeah, you guys are, again, welcome to come over here. I just want to respect your time. But you're welcome to come over here and take a look at it. Let's do that handbag next. Cool. Thank you. Cool.
Are you on Etsy? Yeah. Somewhat. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
styling aside, like I would, definitely work on like making sure this is filled out exactly how my creator wants it to be. I would still have that same kind of method, but because it's not so reflective, like you can play around with it even more. So let's do something like that, and I will fill more from the front. And I'm gonna add a little more light because it's not reflective as well. We'll see if that does the trick.
So your camera also flashed? That one?
It's this. Yeah, I turned it on as like basically the white card. But because it's not matte, it has a cool look to it. I'm going to bump up ISO. And again, definitely check it out on here. But already we got like cool three-dimensional shape. It feels like it pops. Right now I have a flash on. So if you were doing it with an iPhone, pretend this is just another steady light like that.
Just two soft lights.
Two soft lights, yeah. Like everything's the same. Everything's the same. It's all about how you shape it. So literally just probably right now this is a stronger light, so I would just play around with your settings. Yeah, by all means, if you want to see it, this is like this is how I would start most 3D things. And you'll see a little bit of the light now, but I'm only doing this, I'm only having it so close because I'm using that flash, and it's more powerful than this light. So I really wanted to show that, like, the edge being brighter, and just to kind of show that roll off. But yeah, that is, again, look at it on here. You can see it looks way different.
Oh, yeah. Ooh, look at these lights aren't facing, like the two soft lights aren't facing each other. They're kind of like pointed this way.
Yeah, so that's something I can just quickly tell you guys about. So if you ever shoot directly, like you'll have like essentially the hardest light of whatever light you're using. Even if it's a big soft light like this is still harder than all the edge. So when you turn your light away and like get more of this light or this light, it's called feathering your light. So if you ever feel like you think the light looks right, like it's in the right place, but you feel like it's too powerful or it's too like got too much bite to it, try to feather your light, and that will just lighten out a little bit of that, lighten out that bite a little bit, and create more of that kind of like that dreamy 3D effect. Painterly is another word. Yeah. Yeah, and it's noon. I don't want to like hold you guys here hostage anymore. But any other questions? Yeah.
If I were to shoot a painting in the midday daylight outside,
Yeah.
What settings would I use on my camera for like a Canon Rebel?
So settings-wise, you have to dial it in per situation. I would just follow some of the rules I was saying as far as you want to, as much as you can for your aperture, try to bring that number higher. Don't go crazy like 22 or anything, but like maybe f5.6 to f11. Okay. Try to be somewhere in there. Keep your ISO as low as you can, and if you have a tripod, use the shutter speed to adjust for bringing more light in.
Okay.
That'll keep your image as clean as possible. And then as far as white balance goes, if you're in open shade like this, maybe you can probably get away with auto. But there's another thing you guys can do, write it down, it's called Gray Card. You can get one pretty cheap, but that'll help you dial in your white balance in post-production if you're shooting raw.
Okay.
And what you would do is basically take your Gray Card. Let's pretend this is a Gray Card, and I was about to shoot this piece of art. You get everything set up how you want it to be set up. You put this in front, right where your light's going to hit. Like not like out here, but like literally like where your light's going to hit. Take your shot, and then after the fact, you can just use that as your base, and you'll have consistent lighting throughout, or consistent color throughout. Yeah, you bet.
Any advice for cleaning lenses?
Yeah. So they have really good kits that you can do. There's like little lens wipes that are basically kind of alcohol swabs. Are you talking more like smudges, or are you talking dirt?
I've just got, my sister gave me this lens. I just know it's got dust and stuff on the lens.
Yeah.
How to get rid of it.
Yeah, this right here, a little duster. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, real easy. Especially out here in the desert, we don't have to worry as much about the humidity. So getting a duster is probably the fastest way. Duster and like a little brush, fastest way to clean your lenses. Yeah, if it's just dust, I would do this first because the wipe's gonna get that dirt wet and then smudge it. Yep.
Advantage or disadvantage in shooting 3D objects like the first or the ceramic piece on black velvet? Great.
Beautiful. Yeah, honestly, yeah. I mean, we were shooting on the pedestal because that's what I have. But if you built a little vignette for your 3D art, Yeah, your sculpture or whatever. Yeah, by all means. And black velvet's such a nice texture for photography because, again, that black's going to absorb and that velvet's like real dreamy when it's lit well. So if you lit black velvet, if black velvet was underneath that with this light set up, like you'll get all those edges of that black velvet getting those highlights, which would be really, really pretty. And then this front light wouldn't affect all that other black velvet. Yeah, so yes, all the velvet.
Before we lose anyone, do you guys mind if I get a group shot of everyone with Nader in it? Oh yeah.
All right. Do you want lights?
I'm gonna make it easy on you. I'll take care of it. If everybody can just stand where you're at and kind of gather up here, and I'll throw Nader in the back. You know, shorty's up front and tall's in the back.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Yeah, you bet, brother. Yeah.
No, that's okay. Thank you though for asking. Yeah, you guys just come gather up here. We'll get a quick shot, and then you guys can finish your day.
Yeah.
So if I want to kind of eliminate that, would that be the feathering effect? That big?
So is that another? Do you have an actual light right here?
Yeah, I've got the soft box
Yeah.
on either side of it.
So let's get our picture and then I'll walk through that. So I would say indirect light is probably the solution to that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just find a spot. If I can't see you, you can't. I can't.
All right.
Can't.
I'll get down low.
Or, yeah, get it. Just squeeze in. So let me have you over here, please. You're good if you just squeeze in a little bit more.
Fun fact: I've never had my picture taken by Z.
Like that. Perfect. Ready? 1, 2, and I'll do a few. 1, 2, and 3. Again, one more. Awesome. Thank you, guys. Thank you. Thanks, Nader.
Yeah. You guys are welcome. Yeah.